Okay, so let's begin our call for today. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So, due to some unavoidable last minute personal reasons, Sarita Kandari is not able to host this seminar. So, I'm your host today. So, almost every business today, new and long standing, including public sector organization, want to take competitive advantage of current and next generation technologies like cloud computing, mobile computing, real-time analytics, artificial intelligence, IoT, and anything which is coming under the umbrella of Industrial Revolution 4.0. This is also commonly known as a digital transformation era. So this present a significant opportunity and risk for business analysis professionals like us as we shift from the process automation or project mindset to focus on integrating new technologies directly into organization business model. This is no longer simply about improving what we did before. This is about delivering project in new and refreshed ways that were impossible before. In this environment, effective and strategic business analysis is increasingly become a critical corporate capabilities, and traditional business oriented requirement centric BA will become a thing of past. The BA professional will need to adopt more strategic and business oriented approach and expand their skill set into the areas such as product management, process improvement, and lean product development considering the digital capabilities. They will also need to develop leadership skill and position themselves as a trusted advisor in the digital transformation era. Being said that, let me set an agenda for today's seminar. This is digital transformation, and it is really and what is really mean about the business analysts like us. So let me introduce you to our key speaker first. So our key speaker is Devjani Mohanty. She is a solution architect involved in large project and build many scalable enterprise B2B, B2C product from concept to market in travel, e-governance, e-commerce, and BFSI domain. Writing complex technical articles in easy language and with high readability is her forte. For that, she earned her close to 15,000 followers on social media. Devjani is author of Amazon bestsellers, Blockchain from Concept to Execution, Ethereum from Architect and for Architect and Developer, B3 Coda for Architect and Developer, and Ripple and Stablecoin, Building Banks of Tomorrow by Spinnaker Nature and PBB Publication, some of the biggest tech publication in the world, and her book have been translated into German and Chinese for their huge popularity. Devjani is a global blockchain pioneer and leader who has articulated many unique products which are now pilot and production phase in India and international market, and has been awarded as well as appreciated by the business leader globally. Our second participant or keynote speaker is Sandeep Rambatla, founder of Process B Technologies Private Limited. Sandeep is a founder CEO of education technology startup, which is into designing and developing a serious games for corporate and high education. Sandeep is currently pursuing PhD in the field of simulation games and learning. He has over 15 years of work experience as a process consultant and worked with organizations such as HSBC, Citi, TCS, Cisco, etc. Sandeep is also founder of NGO called Satwa, which is running from last 20 years. Our third and final panelist is Rajneesh Upreti, founder of Bima Mall. Rajneesh Upreti is founder of InsurTech called Bima Mall, which is India's first digitally powered platform dedicated to insurance intermediaries. By providing several digital enabled tools, it allows insurance agents to market and position themselves in a highly competitive insurance market. Rajneesh is having over 22 years of experience, rich experience in PNC insurance area as a consultant with a leading provider of software product and services to insurance industry globally. He is having extensive experience in conceptualizing, developing, and delivering strategic and business consulting projects, and he is having a immense experience in the field of business analysis. Being said that, let me pass this session to Devjani Mohanty to share her views on the digital transformation. Let me make Devjani as a host. Devjani, over to you now.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Dejani, we can able to hear you properly.
Okay, I was muted before.
Yeah,
Okay,
no worries.
so I have to share my screen, right? Okay, one moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope all of you can see my screen. Blockchain for digital disruption, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. All right. So, thank you for such a wonderful introduction. I think all of you know what areas I have been working so far. And just to add that 4 of my projects are close to either they're in pilot or in on close to production at the moment. I'm working closely both in Switzerland as well as for the Indian government, mostly on blockchain projects. And the agenda in the 15 minutes, what I'm going to cover, first I'll discuss a little bit about this digital disruption, followed by the blockchain hype, and I'll cover a little bit of basics of blockchain, and then I'll discuss some of the blockchain use cases. So, first of all, I think all of you know what is digital disruption. So, the standard definition says that it's a change that occurs when new set of digital technologies arrive in the market, and business models are affected, and the value proposition of existing goods and services affect the business. So you can see all these world leaders like Uber or Airbnb or Skype, Alibaba, Facebook. So they are the biggest in their own field. So how they used the same technology or some kind of new technology, or maybe a combination of technologies that led to their success and made them the pioneers in their area. So you have to rethink the entire business model, and not through just one technology, not through blockchain, not only through blockchain, not only through AI, or just one technology. It's a combination which could lead you to a different world altogether. So now, if I tell you that what are the technologies which are trending in the moment, because some of the questions that came to me, that what are the technologies we should learn, or you know, what are the trending areas. So these are the trending areas set by Gartner for 2018 and 19. The first one is the 18 report, and the second one is the 19 report. And you can see blockchain in both the cases. I think I can paste this off, maybe, so that you can go through these links. Sorry, you can go through these links which talks about the um, part of it. How can I? Okay, I'll just send it out to you. So you can learn from these links that are published by Gartner, which tells you about the different technologies which are trending at the moment, which includes blockchain, which includes AI, which includes Internet of Things, and others, digital twins. So these are some of them which are trending for last couple of years. But if you compare blockchain with others, you'd find you'd be surprised rather that blockchain is the youngest cutting edge technology in the market. So if you compare it with IoT, IoT has been evolving for decades altogether. Sensors were there for since 1940s or 50s. Sensors were there, or IoT, call it AI. So these technologies were there in the market for a very long time. But blockchain, if you see the the evolution of blockchain, it's there only for a decade. And in fact, it was the technology was not there. Maybe it came as a cryptocurrency. We all know about the story of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin came as a white paper in 2008, and then by 2010 the first transaction happened on Bitcoin, and somebody bought a pizza, two pizzas, worth 25 US dollars, and paid 10,000 Bitcoins for that. However, the price increased to something like 20,000 US dollars per Bitcoin somewhere back in 2017. So you can see that how gradually it has evolved in just 10 years. Then initially it was the technology behind Bitcoin was blockchain, and initially it was only a cryptocurrency. The only product that was there in the market was Bitcoin, which was a cryptocurrency. Then Ethereum project came, and through Ethereum project you could create your decentralized applications. So it came as a technology. But then we had Hyperledger Fabric, we had other technology, we had R3 Coda, and there are successful blockchain products in the market like Ripple. One of my latest book works on talks about Ripple. So these are some of the very successful products built on the blockchain technology, and the cryptocurrency market has reached billions. I do not know what is the current value at the moment. So back in 2017, it was 150 billions. And the investment in blockchain is increasing at a tremendous rate of 80 to 90% year on year. So blockchain has found its place on Gartner Hype Cycle. So Gartner every year comes with the Hype Cycle with the new technologies, and so you can see that for the very first time, blockchain found its place on Gartner Hype Cycle in 2016. You can see that by 2017 it moved from this place and to this place, and 2018 it has moved here. So what it means is this curve means first there is a hive, the hive reaches its saturation, then it comes down because people realize that maybe it's not worth that much, or maybe there are loopholes in this technology. So the hype goes down, and finally people start working on it, and finally there is a saturation. That means there is a real value. So you can see the market predicts that blockchain is projected to mature in 5 to 10 years time. So even now it has not matured. So you can see this diagram, and you can see that this is what Oracle and Deloitte has predicted. In the right hand side you can see that they have predicted that 10% of global GDP would be stored on blockchain ledger by 2025 or 2027, so which is not far away. And blockchain will create 176 billions of business value by 2025 and 3.1 trillion by 2030. So you can see this curve. This curve is showing the growth of blockchain, like I was talking about the hive, and then coming down, then again reaching saturation. So the growth is going, and you can see the real value in the blocks, the dark blue business value. So this is showing that actually the business value would start from 2020, and by 2030 the business value would reach somewhere around 3.1 trillion. So what is blockchain? So broadly, blockchain is a distributed ledger. Okay, ledger is what? Ledger is a special kind of database. It's not a database, but it's a special kind of database where you can only add data. You cannot update, you cannot delete, you can only add data. So that is a ledger. And what is a distributed ledger? Distributed ledger means, I think there is a, yeah, so this picture, you can see this first one is the centralized ledger. So everyone is adding their data to the same database, right? Even if you are having, let's say, backup, this a hot and cold backup, everything. So actually the controller of that database is a single entity. It might be one organization, right? So it makes a centralized database. So even if you got a backup, like I was talking about now, creating a what I can say, backup of database, like people create hot backup, cold backup, but still it makes centralized database. But in a distributed ledger, what happens is there are a lot of different nodes, and each node is carrying exactly the same data. So, or a replica of the original database. So this is distributed database. So blockchain is a distributed ledger where every node is carrying the same data, and there is a consensus also. So the consensus is what, because it's not belonging to one person or one entity. So that is why whenever new data comes to the ledger, then after everyone says yes, or maybe a group of people says yes, this data is validated, then only the data goes to the ledger. So that is why the consensus of adding data is decentralized. So that makes blockchain a distributed as well as a decentralized database or ledger. So distributed because everyone is carrying a copy, and decentralized because after a group of people is agreeing to the data, then only the data goes to the ledger. It's digital, and data is replicated in near real time. That means it doesn't matter who is adding the data. So it's actually getting replicated. It's the technology or the blockchain network is adding the data or replicating the data to all the ledgers in near real time timeline. So data is timestamped, and this is actually the data is what I can say. Is immutable. So what it means is whenever you are adding data, let's say I add my name, the Jenny Mohanty, to the database or blockchain database or ledger, and then I realize there is a spelling mistake. So what I do, in a traditional database, I can update it, but in blockchain database or ledger, I can add, I can write it again, and the ledger would keep the previous version as well and the new version as well. So that means actually you can trace back all your data that you have in the blockchain database. So that makes a very innovative solution, and I'll tell you why. So this makes non-trusting parties to work together, and every party or every node represented on the blockchain network, they have got their own private key, and this makes it cryptologically secure. Everyone is having their key, and whenever they're adding the data, so we do not need to validate whether this person is authenticated, because he's using his own key. So that is why that makes him an authenticated user. um, right now I'll tell you a very simple business scenario. Oh, okay, so it's a very simple business scenario. Three different business houses want to do business with each other, right? Let's say it's something like Make My Trip. I want to create a package trip to Europe, let's say, and I want a Air India, and my flight tickets through Air India, my hotel through Hilton, and some ground services. So how they would work together? So this is a typical scenario where different organizations are working together. So there are different models. The first one is a fully distributed model, which mostly people follow today. So all these business units would be having their own, what I can say, services, and then they would do data deduplication and synchronize. The whole lifetime they would keep on doing synchronization with other units. So this is one model. The second one is fully centralized model, but everyone would be, because nobody would actually go for this kind of model, because in central party could lead to single point of failure, and it might be a political decision to hold your own data. So many might not be opting for this. So that is why you can go for this model, where all the business houses, they are represented as one node each on this network, on this blockchain network, and whenever any one of them adds the data, the other people in this network can also see that what data has been added by whom, and the data is cryptologically secure. So we do not have to suspect that who has added the data. So that brings a new business model, and that makes blockchain. And also you got smart contracts. So that is like you are having programs which run in the network. So any data which goes to the network has to be validated through the smart contract and get added to the network. So data, like I said, is immutable, it's neutral. The same contract would be, or same logics would be applied to everybody. It doesn't expire, because data is there once added, it cannot expire. And it's forgery protected and replicated. Now, if you want to know that whether your blockchain any use case is a good scenario for blockchain, you have to evaluate it through different. This is a template to evaluate by World Economic Forum. So it might not be the latest. You have to look for this template to find out, answer a few questions, and to know that whether you need a public blockchain, you need a private blockchain, or what kind of, or you do not need blockchain at all. So because otherwise everybody would run after blockchain. Now, if you see the engagement models across the globe, you can see that India is not far behind. India is only in number 4 after US, Japan, and UK. So there is good progress on India in past 2 years. I got. And if you see the work that mostly people in India, like a company like TCS or Infosys, they work in projects outside India. But if you talk about what work has been done inside India and for Indian people, you can find this chart. And mostly the use cases which work in blockchain is like land registry, insurance, and digital certificate. Digital certificate means something like, birth certificate, and even I'm working in Kerala government. So we are redoing the passport seva. Passport seva was already digital, but we are redoing it using blockchain. And also, this is a chart by McKinsey which tells you that which are the use cases which should be most impactful and most feasible to apply in blockchain. So you can see cross-border payments and trade finance is a very good use case for blockchain. So similarly, in insurance domain, there are different use cases which should be good to be applied on blockchain. So trade finance, why this is very useful is because in trade finance there could be many different parties. So this is, so here you can see there is a exporter, there is an importer here. So this is not only, this involves a finance leg, this involves a delivery leg, and this could be a supply chain also. Different kind of verticals you can say that that trade finance constitute of. So there could be banks involved, there could be insurance companies involved. In fact, I have not shown all of them together, but each of them can be represented as a node on the blockchain network, and you can see how the data is traced. You can trace back the data. Let's say that the seller or the exporter has already dispatched its goods and it's traveling from port to port to port. Then for 2 months altogether, the goods are actually transported from some other place of the world to some, and it's going to some other place in the world. You can track it using blockchain. So this is a very good use case. Even in a medicine, so the medicine is manufactured, it has to be there in a particular temperature. It has to, you can attach IoT sensors, and this is a very good use case where IoT and blockchain can work together. And you can see that where it has traveled, whether the temperature has been remained the same as what is there in the contract. So everything you can track, because all of them are different nodes. The warehouse is a node, the supplier is a node, right? So you can check this if you keep it on blockchain network. So what happens is everybody in the node, so every node is actually having a single version of truth. So everybody is able to see the same data. So unlike the centralized system, everything would be on the same ledger, and there is no possibility of error or tampering. And it also eliminates middlemen, reduces cost and time of execution. So this is a e-auction project which I'm currently working for a Swiss organization, Swiss FinTech. So this is high volume e-auction where we can have millions of shares being traded. So here you can see this model where we are using off-chain database, which could be Oracle or MongoDB, whatever. And this is on-chain, or this is a blockchain database where every node is actually it could be an issuer or it could be an investor, and they're trading together. And you can work from different parts of the world and working with different currencies. We are in fact working with different currencies. So in the off-chain database, we are keeping all the registration data, KYC data, and in the on-chain database or the blockchain, we are keeping only the transactional information. And similarly, I don't think we have got enough time, but in Islamic banking also, I have worked in one of the Islamic banking project where we are converting the gold to create a currency, new currency, and we are using it as a currency in the market. So that's all for the time being. Let me see what all questions you have, if at all. Do I have more time?
Lejai ma'am, we will ask you a question at the end of the session.
Sure.
I'm just correlating all the questions, and I'll ask you at the end of the session.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your nice views. And our next participant is Rajneesh, a keynote speaker, and he's going to share his views on digital transformation from the business analyst point of view and all the transformation which is happening. So now let me make the Rajneesh as a host. Or yes, Rajneesh. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Rajneesh, are you able to hear me properly?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, your voice is a bit low.
Yeah, I'm trying to share my screen now. Can you
Yeah,
hear me now?
yeah, we can able to hear you properly.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Ravi, and welcome again, everyone, for this part of the webinar. I have put together a few slides for the discussion today. And here is a brief agenda. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm going to discuss. The first thing that I'm going to discuss is we're going to understand the digital journey. After digital journey, we are going to discuss the business analysis and business analyst role. In the third slide that I have, I intend to bring the first and two slides together and see the point of convergence between the business analysis and digital transformation. And finally, we are going to wrap up the discussion with how the future looks like for the business analysis role. Okay, so this is our first slide. In this slide, you can see we have three stages in the digital journey. The first one is digitization, the second one is digitalization, and the third one is digital transformation. Here I'm trying to bring one more perspective to digital transformation journey. However, you should note that it is not necessary for an organization to first move from digitization to digitalization to digital transformation. An organization can straight away move to digital transformation as well. This journey is more indicative of the evolution of digital journey over a period of time. Okay, so what is digitization? So if I try to explain it in simple terms, it is like moving away from paper organization to the paperless organization. This we have seen several years ago when organizations were trying to get rid of stuff like typewriters, when we were moving away from the paper-based things to spreadsheet and work and Word files. So maintaining online records using Excel files instead of physical diary, converting your audio tapes to MP3 files, all of those are examples of digitization. Now coming to digitalization, it is one step ahead of digitization. It is a process of employing digital technologies to transform the business operations, like using new workflow systems, using modern tools, developing software systems to streamline processes, using modern emails and stuff like that. It is more about improving business operations. So when organizations implement digital technologies, this has an impact on the employees as well. So we have seen people getting laid off because of I remember when a company of ours got rid of Lotus Notes and replaced it Microsoft Exchange, and then we had the Lotus Notes maintenance team, they have to go away. So digitalization essentially means that that computers and other electronic equipments are going to take over human job and make or make their job easier. Another example could be imagine 10 workers packing the stuff in a factory by hand, and then it is getting replaced by 1 or 2 workers who are doing packing using a computerized packing machine. So in general, I think we can say that digitalization is aimed at improving efficiency, reducing cost, and maybe also achieving customer satisfaction. In the IT industry context, I think it is implementing modern software systems, which many of us are part of. Now coming to digital transformation is actually at a strategy level. It requires far more effort compared to digitalization. Digitalization and digital transformation are more often used interchangeably, but actually they should not be, because digital transformation involves far more digital adoption as compared to digitalization. So digitalization can be, for example, in bits and pieces, while digital transformation is end to end. It is like more an enterprise-wide thing, something that changes the whole way the organization perceives and adopts technology. And digital transformation, I think, is not just technology adoption. As I said, it is much more than that. It is it's the whole strategy stuff. Digital transformation is not just doing business effectively through digital tools, but redefining how the business is done. So for example, if we look at Amazon, right? it appears to be just an online marketplace now. But if you think when Amazon was started several years ago, there didn't exist any concept of online marketplace. So what Amazon did was not only utilizing the technology, but doing business in an entirely different way, right? Something that was really revolutionary. So that, according to me, is a real example of digital transformation. Another story could be maybe WhatsApp, right? So it was bought in 2014 by Facebook for uh, $19 billion, right? And at that time, even they had a small team. So I think that is something which was revolutionary. They did something which has never been done before. So let me move on to the next slide. So this slide talks about the business analysis and business analyst. Here are a few definitions that I took from the web that tells us, what is business analysis and what a business analyst does. So if you look at these definitions, I think there are a few points that emerge, and I have highlighted those points. So if you see here, the business analyst act as a liaison between stakeholders. He's someone who understands the as-is processes and recommends solutions. He's someone who analyzes and documents requirements. He supports communication between stakeholders, delivers requirements, provides data-driven recommendations, and reports to executives. So this is how business analysis is normally defined. So I think though these are the widely accepted definitions, I think the role of business analyst is not limited to what is provided in these definitions. So depending upon an organization, a business analyst is required to perform different type of functions. And we have seen, those of you who are in the business analyst role, you may have seen that in your daily work life, right? Like, somebody calling you a system analyst, sometimes you're called a business architect, sometimes a process analyst, sometimes a IT business analyst, or even, I think a data analyst or research analyst. So the definitions, though, these try to cover what a business analyst does, but I think still they don't cover all the aspects. And one more point related to business analysis that I want to mention is that business analysis is often related to software development, but I think that is not the case. A business analyst work is like the work of business analyst is to come up with solutions, which may or may not be IT solutions. So there are business analysts who are involved in research work, who are required to study the emerging market trends. Who they have to come up with recommendations and roadmap. So while I was involved in a lot of business analysis work that relates to IT, but one example that I could give you where we were doing something other than IT was several years ago. I was working in a project where we were doing vendor evaluation for an insurance company. So this work doesn't involve any IT work, but was more directed towards studying different systems that are available in the market, their unique features, their service standard, their past success stories, and at the same time, from our organization point of view, we were trying to understand our current and future needs, and come up with maybe the top 3 or 5 best fits for our customer. So that was a kind of research and analysis work, and was outside of the normal IT work that we normally think a business analyst does. So we were not deploying any software product, but we were trying to find out software product that suits best to our customers. So I think it is quite obvious that the role of BA can include a lot of other things as well. Let me move on to the next slide. So this slide is actually a combination of the 2 previous slides, and shows the convergence point of business analysis and digital transformation. I think over a period of time in the digital evolution, we have gradually moved from digitization to digitalization to digital transformation. I think we've already discussed that. Now, from the business analyst perspective, I think there are 3 stages in the evolution of a person as a business analyst. I have named them as clerical, which is stage 1, analytical, which is stage 2, and transformational, which is stage 3. And by the way, you won't be able to find these 3 stages anywhere else. This is just based on my perspective and based on my experience as a BA. So my view is that at the clerical stage, which is like a BA who is involved in kind of low end work, like preparing spreadsheets, converting data, or testing assignments can also fall within this stage. Then recording review meetings can also be an example of this stage. This is like the period when a new BA in the team is put on the training, where he's expected to see and learn from his senior colleagues. The next stage is what I call the analytical stage, where the business analyst takes on the research and analysis work. The stage involves all the major tasks that a BA has to perform, like doing research work, or coming up with solutions, or identifying business needs, documenting as-is processes, coming up with to-be processes, manage stakeholders, or maybe even provide process improvement recommendations, or even handhold the BAs who are at the clerical stage, and providing training to them, and creating the reusable knowledge assets. The third transformational stage is like doing the high-end work, like providing strategic direction to the company. The work involved in this stage would include both the clerical and the analytical work, but the BA has a better understanding of the big picture, and the senior management trusts him. The BA at this stage can even be a part of the board meetings, where he is brought in to bring and push an idea before the board members. So I think the third stage is the stage where the BA delivers high value to its employer. This is where he works closely with the business leaders. He brings multidimensional approach to the business, considering all the aspects, like the people aspect, the process aspect, the technology aspects. However, let me mention here that these three stages has nothing to do with the experience of a BA. So there might be a BA who is working for only 1 or 2 years and is engaged in engaged with top management and doing what I call transformational work. And at the same time, there might be a BA who's into a BA role for more than 10 years and still stuck in the clerical bracket. Also, one of the things that I would like to mention is, even though you are a transformational BA who is engaged in providing direction on strategic matters, still you will be performing a lot of clerical work as well. Still you will be performing a lot of analytical work as well. So if you look at this infographic, it tries to tell you, even for a transformational guy, maybe 50% is transformational, 30% is analytical, and maybe 20% is clerical. So you still have to do all the work that made you a BA. Now comparing BA's evolution to the digital cycle, I think at the digitalization stage, the clerical BA would, the digitization stage, the clerical BA would work, right? But at the digitalization stage, the BA is required to acquire more skills to perform his work. This is where he acquires new tools. I think it is high time for BA to understand that traditional business analysis skills, skill sets that they have, that is no longer sufficient. The business analyst role is now changing. So this is the last slide that I have. I would like to wrap up here. I think I am highly positive that as organizations become more digital, the business analyst role is going to become more stronger and stronger. Business analysis as a career, I think, is very promising, as it has to deal with different parts of the organization. So you may have different, you may have BA across the organization, across functions. So BA role is multidimensional, right? Sometimes he has to document things. Sometimes he's a speaker. Sometimes he is just a negotiator, or sometimes he's an interrogator. His role involves a lot of things. And I think this is what makes business analyst role so exciting and also so valuable for the company. So I strongly believe that if the BA is ready to enhance his skills and ready to learn analytical skills, ready to learn technical skills, and ready to learn leadership skills, I think there's no way he cannot succeed. I was reading a report from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it says that BA jobs are going to increase by 19% till 2022, I think, which is very exciting. So with this, I'll stop. Thanks a lot to all the participants for patiently listening to me. And you can reach out to me or to Ravi if you have any questions. So over to you, Ravi, now.
Yes, thank you, Rajneesh. Thanks for your nice input, and we are glad. I got a few questions for you, but I'll ask those questions at the end of the session. And now
Okay.
we are moving to our next guest, Sandeep. And Sandeep will be sharing a very different dimension altogether. You know, reimagining the business processes, thinking. So, Sandeep, over to you. I'm going to make you as a host now. Sandeep. Hello, Sandeep. Sandeep, are you able to hear us? Okay, just a moment. Reclaim host. Mute. Guys, just a moment. Let me make Sandeep as a host now. Mute and make a host.
Okay.
There you go. Sandeep is online now. Sandeep, over to you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Sandeep, we can able to hear you properly, loud and clear.
All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, all. Pleasure being a part of this knowledge sharing session. Would like to thank my previous speakers, though, for setting the context and making my job a lot more easier. Right. So in the first session, we looked at the evolution of blockchain and a few, important and relevant use cases. We got a glimpse of what's really happening in the blockchain world, and that's what we had from the first session. The second speaker beautifully explained the digital journey, and he also talked a little bit about the role of the BA in the entire journey of digital transformation. So that really covers the two critical aspects of it. So in this session of mine, I would like to take a couple of steps, backwards, and then look at this entire thing from a more philosophical view, and then look at a few use cases which would really help us, set the discussion rolling. The first speaker, Debjani, did in her slide speak a lot about the Gartner hype cycle. So I've been, quite reminded during my consulting days when we used to look at the, Gartner hype cycle. The 80s and 90s were the days where business process reengineering, or BPR, was the buzzword which was moving around the corporate cycles. So BPR quietly faded, and then in the early 2000s, we did have BPM, ruling the roast. So most of the organization was looking at workflows. They were talking about business process management, and people then were still confused about, hey, what's the difference between a BPR and a BPM, while everything still remains to be the same. And now we, are here talking about digital transformation. So in my mind, for a lay person, how is it really different? I mean, from a business process reengineering to business management and to digital transformation, if you actually look at the underlying goal, if you look at the fundamental premise, by which, all three exist, it really, stays there for, a similar purpose. But, the problem, actually lies when we are actually not looking at it, from the right perspective. That's the, big philosophical question that I have in mind, because when we're looking at digital transformation, when we're looking at BPM and BPR, do we have the right perspective? And as, business analysts or people working in this particular field, what should be our perspective and how should we really approach, things? I mean, because there is a lot of noise in the market, there is a lot of hype, and it's really, important and essential and imperative for us to, remove the noise from the actual, sound before we actually, get going. I get reminded of what Bill Gates, said, right? So if you actually automate inefficient process, at the end of the day, you are multiplying the complexities, 10 times. So no matter what, you could have a digital transformation head in your organization. You could have a charter, you could have a project charter which is talking about digital transformation. But if we don't get a few fundamental things right, and if we don't get our house right, I'm afraid that we might not be in a position to succeed in the effort that we're doing. So that's really the context that I have for my talk, where I'm actually looking at it from a different perspective. So for me, digital transformation is a paradigm shift, right? So it's, and I'm sure the audience would definitely agree with me, it's not this incremental IT implementation that I'm doing. It's not that I'm implementing a bot, which could actually answer all my customer service queries, and hence I've removed 2-3 employees or 10 employees in my organization. It's not about me bringing in some machine learning and then being able to predict a few things here and there, and then provide recommendations to my organization. It's not about me in isolation implementing a blockchain and then calling it a complete digital transformation, right? So whenever we are talking about transformation, we are talking about a paradigm shift. We're talking about a paradigm shift where things no more exist the way it exists, and there is a completely different way of approaching things. So if this is the context of what transformation is, then what would digital transformation entail, right? So I really love cartoons, and Dilbert is my favorite. So if you actually take a look at this, because of my experience working with organizations and banks when I was a process consultant, and now as a person outside giving them learning solutions, we do have a lot of managers out there talking about, oh wait, let me just quickly remove the chairs, and I would change the dress code, and we would actually go ahead and then transform things. So it's not about these band-aid solutions. It's not about even implementing the latest technologies that's there. So digital transformation, as even the previous speaker said, is not about going paperless. It's not only about becoming agile. It's not implementing. More importantly, the biggest hype that we get misleaded about is to look at advanced technology. It's not about implementing RPA, ML, and BI within the organization and then call it digital transformation. It's not definitely looking into switching cloud services. It's also not following your competitors in a Me Too race in implementing some of the bots or service solutions that they've been talking about. So if this is not what digital transformation is, so then the question really is, what's new and why now? Why is it that we really talk about digital transformation in this particular space, and what is the context? So it's quite essential for us to really look at a little bit of history, which will give us a real sense of why we really need this at this point in time, right? So the key aspect to this is time has shrunk and space has expanded. Gone are those days where movies used to have silver jubilees of 360 days, and you used to have celebrations. Right now, if a movie gets released, it's probably running only for about 2 weeks, and it's getting released over 1,800 screens all over the world. So this actually says a lot, right? So time is completely shrunk. So the success of a movie is just about 2 weeks. It's determined in about 2 weeks, and the space is you actually have a wider audience by means of your digital presence to actually look at a wider audience. So given this as a context, customers' expectations change. Organizations, who have not evolved and who have not recognized this, are facing a lot of challenge. So let's look at this, right? So I've just taken, a case in point where the General Electric, right? When General Electric, was quite popular, you had the Jack Welch of the world, writing popular books. So they were market leaders for more than 50 plus years. So they had enough and more time for them to actually establish. They had enough and more time for them to actually, sustain their leadership model, right? Then comes Yahoo. You actually, I think most of us would have had our first email created in Yahoo. So, but where is Yahoo right now? In about 10 plus years, it actually had its own peak, and then it flattened, right? So you don't really see much of Yahoo, but for it being a search engine in couple of countries where it's still popular, but apart from that, you still don't see Yahoo much in use. So it had its own peak, and it really vanished. It waned off from its peak in no time. And then you also had companies like housing.com, where when it all started, it was quite a boom, but they're not there anymore. In the sense, they're not still the market leader, right? So this really tells us something quite important, right? This is because customers of the erstwhile generation gave companies enough and more time, and their options was less, and they really did have no other choice to go with a particular company. But right now, that's not the case. So you do have companies rising by the day, and then probably not being in the chart in the couple of years from now. So when time is shrinking, and when time is shrunk and space is expanded, you really got to understand what it really takes for us to do a transformational effort, right? So any transformational effort, be it digital transformation, requires a fertile ground within organization, right? So whenever we're talking about digital transformation, there are a couple of examples that are quoted. We are talking about DBS Bank, we are talking about Pfizer, we are talking about a couple of companies. But it also becomes quite useful, from a use case perspective, for us to actually look at new age companies, like what Ravi had said initially, to look at new age companies, and also to look at companies which are matured. So, for example, let me take a simple use case. When I was working with one of the leading banks to do a transformation effort with their UK and the Switzerland practices, we had a tough time, right? Because we did not get the senior management buy-in. Though the project had a buy-in from the CEO of the organization, but within the department we did not have a buy-in from the senior management, because there were a lot of fears within the organization, because of loss of jobs, and people kept pushing back, saying that, hey, this is compliance related work, you will not be in a position to actually bring in business rules, and you will have a lot of pushback saying that all this cannot be possible, right? So unless and until there is a senior buy-in, unless and until all the people within the organization are taken in its fold, digital transformation, or for that matter any transformation, is going to be extremely difficult. So any transformation, and more importantly digital transformation here, which is what is relevant to our context and discussion right now, needs to actually look at business processes, right? So even the previous speaker said that whenever we are talking about transformation, we would have to look at it not only from a digitization perspective, or we got to look at it from a completely old transformational view, which involves business model transformation, business process transformations. It could have entire business ecosystem transformation, which means to say that you've got to have your suppliers, vendors, and external third-party contractors whom we work with actually to be on board, for this exercise. Business assets, organizational culture, I can't really explain more. So in the current work that we are currently doing, we work with a lot of organizations to do a lot of behavioral change using learning games. And these games are really meant, to change some of the, mental models within organizations, so that it really paves the way for digital, transformation. So there is a lot of pre-work which happens, even prior to digital transformation, and that's where a lot of participants, are involved. So people empowerment and partnership ecosystems are quite, important as well. But the question really is, are organizations quite serious, right? So how many organizations are serious? And especially when we're talking about large organizations who are still very skeptical about, digital transformation, right? So they're actually taking it as a part-time job, like how this, nice cartoon, says, right? It's disruptive technology. You got to change the way in which the organization think. But finally, I'm going to give you this as a summer internship, right? I'm going to set a context of, oh, you have another 3 months, for you to digitally transform the organization, or you have another 8 months to digitally transform the organization. So the question is, are they serious? I mean, are we really serious when we're talking about digital transformation and setting such, unrealistic targets and not really having things in the perspective, right? The reality is most of the organization whom we work with or we have worked with in the past have the problem of legacy systems. legacy systems which don't talk with each other, legacy systems which are in silos and are fortified by various laws. It's only now people have woken up to, oh, okay, let me move things from my data center and let me just move to the cloud. It's only now people are embracing cloud to a certain extent. And when it comes to digital transformation, they're still not there, because there is a lot of things within the organization that needs to be first cleaned up before even we start thinking about digital transformation. So the importance is who's responsible for it, right? Because some of the question here is, when it comes to business analysts, what role do I play in digital transformation? I mean, the answer is, in my mind, if you were to ask me, digital transformation is not the responsibility of one single department. If a CEO is appointing a digital transformation head and he thinks that, the organization is going to be digitally transformed, I'm afraid, that wouldn't be, the case, because there are so many case studies in Harvard Business Review, which talks about failures of organizations which have not really brought in every single member of the organizational fraternity into its fold when we are talking about transformation. So where do we get started? In my view, first we figure out the business strategy before we embark, on a digital transformation journey. If I were a taxi company, even before I look at, what do I really need to do, I would first need to think of what is my business model and what is my business strategy and where, do I really want to be, and how do I really want it to be looked at, right? So once I look at my business strategy, then, I would be in a position to lay out a digital, journey roadmap for me. I've also spoken about involving all stakeholders and not mere consultants from outside. It just doesn't really help to only have, let me make this point very clear, it just doesn't make sense only to have people from McKinsey's of the world and EY's of the world, to think that, organizations could really digitally transform by merely having these consultants from outside. I'm afraid a lot of organizations have failed in doing that as well. Take care of legacy issues and internal bottlenecks. So which means to say that your BPR and BPM exercises are critically important. You will have to become lean, agile, and need to have these practices much before we embark on digital journey, if it is a legacy organization, right? As also what Rajneesh has said, it's not a linear fashion. You don't have to move from digitization to digital transformation. But let's say if you're a fairly young organization, you have the ability and the culture for you to directly look at digital transformation. But if you're looking at an organization which has been there in the market for more than 40, 50 plus years and who have legacy systems, it has to be a linear process unless and until they're going to work like a startup within their organization. The critical part, like if I know a couple of banks right now have really embarked on designing the customer experience from outside in. So it's only now that people have woken up to value chain analysis. So people have started mapping their customer journey, and they are mapping their customer journey and then translating back into the digital journey as well. So it's important that we look at customer experience from outside in and not inside out. We got to handle employees' fears of losing their jobs, because that's one critical issues that might really hold up employees. And more importantly, being from the entrepreneurship world, I would say fail fast and fail often. Organizations will have to bring in the concepts of rapid prototyping, looking at MVPs even before they start building the full-fledged solution. So failing fast and failing often and bringing the startup culture inside the organization really would help. So to conclude, I think I'm just about time. Transformation is a journey and not a destination, and all of us are aware about this. I mean, we definitely, being in the BA world, we are aware that transformation is a journey and just not a destination. But given the organizational compulsions, given the way in which our organizations are structured and KPIs measured, we tend to slip into the fact that it becomes more of a destination and then not look at it as a journey. So it really helps us, time and again, for us to remember this and then get back to this particular fold, thinking the transformation as a journey and not a destination, and then also remove all the roadblocks, that come along the way. With that, I quickly wrap up. So my limited points being, there is a lot of noise about digital transformation. We need to really remove the rice from the chaff. And in doing that, we got to be really clear about what is digital transformation all about, getting back to our fundamentals, and noting that it's just not about implementing digital solutions or for that matter, technology. It's a holistic thing of which combines implementing technology, looking at customer experience inside out, improving the efficiency of processes, and then strategically looking at where do you want to head, and then aligning all these things to that particular strategy. With that, I think I'm afraid I'm running out of time. Thank you so much. Would be happy to take questions. Over to you, Ravi.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. And it was a great session. So in the interest of time, we are already up 4 minutes. So we got a couple of questions here from different participants. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to pass these questions offline to all the keynote speakers, and then what I will do, I will send these questions, the replies, into the common discussion forum on WhatsApp. So I myself, as a business analyst, and I'm closely following this, very closely from a couple of days, and you can see my post on the WhatsApp chat. So I just wanted to quickly share one of the interesting, stories which I just heard about it. The Mass Mutual is one of the major company in US, and one of their business analysts was engaged in improving their, quality input in the system. And he was trying very hard in order to get the things right. And then suddenly what he did, he actually accepted the digital input PDF form, rather than suggesting customer to fill up the form physically. So, and then he also trained his back office operation guy to, in order to to get the data out from the digital form, or maybe consume the data directly from the digital PDF form. So this is the another way of seeing the things. When you are just changing your approach, is a simple change, rather than filling the physical form, go to the digital filling form. And this has drastically increased the the quality business margin within the Mass Mutual. So being said that, I'm not going to hold you for long. It was a nice session. I would like to thank all the keynote speakers here, Devjani, Rajnish, and Sandeep. And we will be sharing the recording of this session soon into the WhatsApp group. And we will happy to have as many as questions if you still want to ask. And we will soon share you all the replies from all the keynote speakers. Thank you, and have a nice day ahead. Bye bye.